Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to another update. We have a big update directly from the White House. Press Secretary Jen Psaki just held a press conference discussing everything from stimulus package negotiations, President Biden's approval rating, and how the stimulus packages will help fix the economy. So let's discuss the details in this video, but before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I also have a second channel, so do me a huge favor. Click on the link that's in the comments of this video. Subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to be giving away a stimulus check on that channel just as a thank you for supporting my work. Okay, so by the time this video is posting, President Biden just officially signed the physical stimulus package into law. Of course, he could have signed that about a week ago, but they took their time to put together a big ceremony to make kind of this big celebration about it. Well, personally, I think they should have signed it last week. If anything, they just delayed this thing going into play, creating millions of jobs, but it is what it is. So that physical stimulus plan has officially been signed into law. Now, this press conference from Jen Psaki was released just before President Biden held the signing ceremony. Now, in this press conference, Jen Psaki is going to talk about the fact that Democratic infighting, so Democrats fighting amongst each other within the Democratic Party, has been slowing down the stimulus package, and even discuss whether or not this is why President Biden's approval rating has been plummeting. See, we kind of have an interesting situation happening where President Biden's approval rating is tanking. Very, very bad. But the approval rating for his next stimulus package, the American Families Plan, is really, really high. So this leads us to believe two things. One, that if the stimulus check package gets done, his approval rating is going to go up once again, especially if it includes the stimulus check for seniors. Secondly, a lot of experts think that even though the American people approve of the stimulus check package, they think the Democratic infighting should be controlled by President Biden, and they should have already had a deal done. And they're basically blaming President Biden for that. Now, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Biden should be responsible? Do you think he's doing a bad job of getting Democrats to work together? I'd be interested to see your thoughts. Now, they're also going to discuss the signing ceremony, which happened right after this press conference, the fact that President Biden signed into law a bill that will create transparency as to how the money from the physical stimulus package will be spent. That way, Americans will have a really good idea of how that physical stimulus package money is being spent. They're also going to discuss how it affects the economy and will hopefully help reduce inflation. And towards the end, she's even asked about Vice President Kamala Harris, which of course most of you know her polls are doing really, really badly as well. There have been rumors that Kamala Harris is actually really unhappy being vice president and specifically working with President Biden. So a lot to cover in this update. Let's take a look, see what Jen Psaki had to say, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
An exciting day here at the White House, but also wanted to note that this president, which we announced, of course, but signed an executive order this morning on the implementation of the infrastructure bill, which laid out 6 main priorities to guide implementation, including investing public dollars efficiently, of course, avoiding waste and focusing on measurable outcomes for the American people, buying American and increasing the competitiveness of the U.S. economy, including through implementing the Act's Made in America requirements and bolstering domestic manufacturing and manufacturing supply chains, creating good-paying job opportunities for millions of Americans by focusing on high labor standards for these jobs, including prevailing wages and the free and fair chance to join a union, investing public dollars equitably, including through the Justice 40 initiative, which is a government-wide effort toward a goal that 40% of the overall benefits from federal investments in climate and clean energy flow to disadvantaged communities, building resilient infrastructure that can withstand the impacts of climate change, that helps combat the climate crisis, and finally, coordinating with state, local, tribal, and territorial governments in implementing these critical investments. We also announced yesterday that former Lieutenant Governor and former Mayor Mitch Landrieu will be leading this effort, and the executive order also started a task force that will be co-chaired by National Economic Council Director Brian Deese, and of course our new implementation coordinator Mitch Landrieu, and will include a number of members of our cabinet. With that, Colleen, welcome. I don't think I've engaged with you in the briefing yet, so welcome to the briefing room.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. So the bill is being signed, and now we're going to spend the money. So I wanted to ask a little bit about if the president has been in touch with governors about how the funds are going to be spent. And I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about the potential oversight mechanisms in place for how the public is going to be able to know how the money is spent.
Sure. Well, first I would note, and I know you are all eager to have a list of exactly who is attending today, and I expect someone will ask me that question. We are still getting attendees lists and people who are still RSVPing, believe it or not. This is sometimes how it works. It is open press. You will see the group. But let me just note, I know this wasn't your question, but since this is a popular one, some of the people who will be attending today, you reminded me of it when you asked about governors. Governor Kate Brown of Oregon, Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland, Governor John Bel Edwards of Louisiana, Mayor David Holt of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina. Again, this is not everyone, but just to give you a sense of the bipartisan group who will be attending. Also, members of Congress, as you know, because we put out, I think, the list of people who will be speaking. Of course, Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer will be in attendance. Other members of leadership, Senator Cassidy, Senator Collins, Senator Portman, Congressman Reed, Congressman Young, and others, as well as a number of business leaders, union leaders, and others. So I would say that Mitch Landrieu is starting his job today. He's going to be in attendance at the ceremony today. He'll be traveling with the president tomorrow, and then he will be getting to work right away. And as our executive order is an indication of, the president is very focused. They call him Sheriff Joe for a reason, on the implementation of this, making sure we keep waste, fraud, and abuse. We prevent waste, fraud, and abuse, and that we are working directly for hours a day, which is what Mitch Landrieu will be doing with governors, local officials, and others. I expect we will have more to say on how that will work, what that work will look like as Mitch Landrieu gets his role underway.
Can you talk a little bit about how the president's message is going to be to voters as he takes steps this week? You know, how is he going to explain to the voters how the spending plan is going to help deal with inflation, supply chain issues?
Sure. Well, let me give you, I know he's going to speak in about an hour and a half, depending on how long the pre-program is, but a little bit of a preview of what you'll hear from him today. And I think that will also be an indication of how he'll talk about some of these plans when he's out in the country. One, you'll hear him convey today that he's also frustrated by the negativity and by the infighting that we've seen in Washington over the last couple of months. He's tired of it too, and that he knows that what the American people expect is that leaders are going to be talking about issues that matter to them, the issues that they're talking about at their kitchen tables, in their communities, in community centers, at their kids' soccer games, or whatever it may be. How can I get a good paying job? How can I make sure my kid will succeed? What are we doing to make sure that we are setting up the next generation for success in the future? And so what you'll hear him talk about today is how this bill, the bipartisan infrastructure plan, will impact people's everyday lives. You'll hear him convey that America is moving and life is going to get better for people across the country, and that this is part of his effort to finish the job, part of it, in getting the pandemic under control, making sure we are addressing rising costs, bringing costs down for the American people, and making us more competitive. So what you can expect to hear from him today is what I've just outlined, and as he goes around the country, he's really going to he's going to dig into how these issues, how the benefits of these packages will impact people's everyday lives, what they talk about at their kitchen tables.
In that same vein, can you just expand on that as it relates to the poll that came out this weekend? You know, you've got the president's popularity down to 41%, approval on his handling of the economy down to 39%. And then you see the response to his legislation, which is pretty popular.
Yeah.
Where's the disconnect there, and that his legislation right now, infrastructure particularly, is more significantly more popular than he is?
Well, what we see this as is an opportunity, because we know that the president's agenda is quite popular, as you noted. And as you can see in the poll, the American Rescue Plan, the infrastructure deal are some of the most popular major pieces of legislation in the last 20 years. The bipartisan infrastructure deal and the Build Back Better agenda are very popular. And on COVID, polling shows there is support for our vaccine requirements. We know also, and I've been doing press and communications for some time, I will tell you that you don't design a communication strategy around infighting within the Democratic Party in Washington. That is not how you typically design it. That has been a necessity in order to get this legislation done. And looking back, the president would have done the same thing because he wants to deliver for the American people. But now is an opportunity for the president, the vice president, I'll note, and he'll mention this today, our cabinet, to be out in the country, connecting the agenda, the impacts on people's lives, moving beyond the legislative process to talk about how this is going to help them. And we're hoping that's going to have an impact.
But you don't see the infighting in Washington within the Democrats' own party as the reason for the president's approval rating. as where it is, do you?
Well, we think, one, there's a couple factors. One is people are still, there's a fatigue from COVID. We see that in poll after poll, in your poll, and many other polls that have come out around the country. People are sick and tired of COVID and the impacts on the economy. We understand that. We're tired of it too. That's why this is the number one priority, continues to be getting COVID under control. I was just noting the fact that how we have spent our time and how our time has been consumed here is by getting this bill across the finish line. There's absolutely no regrets about that. This is going to get America, continue America moving again, make a fundamental difference in people's lives. But it hasn't allowed for all of the time we would typically be out there talking about the benefits, as the bill was not finalized. It wasn't finished. We're looking forward and eager to do that.
Just quickly on infrastructure, you said at the top that the president's message is going to be that it's going to get better. How this is going to lay out how this is going to impact their lives. What is the timeline on this, particularly what he is signing today? When will Americans start to see this in their communities in a very real way?
Well, there are some components that we are going to see rather quickly and some that will take a little bit more time. And part of what our focus is on, as you saw the president and I announced at the top, sign the executive order on implementation, creating this task force, name somebody who's going to oversee it, and we're going to get components of this done as quickly as possible. I would note, though, that this is designed to be this is not designed to be a stimulus bill. This is designed to be something that is spent out over time. What the president feels this bill is going to help do is have an impact over the short, medium, and long term by putting more people back to work, by investing in our infrastructure, by making sure people know that they're industries of the future that we are investing in. We're creating good paying jobs for the long term as well. So I would just note that this is not, sometimes I'm not saying you're doing this, but sometimes people compare this to the Recovery Act of 2009. It is not that. We are not in the middle of a historic economic crisis right now. This is an opportunity to build our country back better, build our industries back better, and that's what we are going to work to do as we implement this bill. Go ahead.
There are a few reports from over the weekend that the vice president is unhappy. Can she expect the president's automatic endorsement if she decides to run herself in either 2024 or 2028?
Well, first of all, the president selected the vice president because to serve as his running mate because he felt she was exactly the person he wanted to have by his side to govern the country. She's a key partner, she's a bold leader, and she is somebody who has taken on incredibly important assignments, whether it is addressing the root causes of migration at the Northern Triangle or taking on a core cause of democracy in voting rights. So that is who the president selected. I don't have any predictions of whether she will run, when she will run. I will leave that to her, but I can tell you that there's been a lot of reports out there and they don't reflect his view or our experience with the vice president.
And so you guys have not heard that the vice president or key members of her staff are unhappy?
Here's what I know, Peter. I know that the president relies on the vice president for her advice, for her counsel. She's somebody who is not only taking on issues that are challenging. She's not looking for a cushy role here. No vice president is, no president is, and that she's somebody that is a valuable member of the team. And he expects to also, you can all expect to be out there, out in the country on the infrastructure bill, and he's looking forward to having her out there too.